Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar today, where we're going to be talking about the Survival Guide for Nonprofit Finance Teams. I'm Joan Benson, and I support and head up the nonprofit industry group at Sage Intacct. And joining me today is David Abel, who is our nonprofit sales engineer, and he's going to be giving us some insights behind the scenes and showing us how technology works in the specific areas that we're going to be talking about today on our webinar. We have just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started today, and I wanted to be sure and let you know that you are going to be getting a copy of the presentation afterwards, as well as a link to the recording, so you'll have that to refer to later or to share with your colleagues. And also, I wanted to make sure that we answer your questions as we go along today, so please be sure to chat those to us, and we would be happy to respond to those. Thanks so much for that. So here's a quick look at our agenda, what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be focusing on challenges facing nonprofit finance teams and how to deal with those. We're also going to talk a little bit about current technology trends and the cloud, and also be sure we answer your questions and take a look at the practical application of some of the concepts that we're going to be talking about today. So as we're talking to nonprofit finance teams all across the country, we find that typically their challenges and their concerns and their constraints relate to a lot of the items on this list: reporting, compliance, funding, internal controls, and they're growing in complexity, and they're growing in the different funding streams that they have. And they're also integrating different systems, and they're using different technology systems within their organization. So it's really critical that they be able to have visibility and an integrated view of their data so that they can make sure that they're leveraging the modern technology that's available to them so that they have the edge when it comes to not only visibility and reporting, but also being able to report on their outcome and performance metrics. We want to make sure they have that edge in being able to gain technology that's going to help them ensure mission success. And whenever you talk about technology, obviously we're always talking about the cloud, and there's been significant enhancements in adoption of the cloud as well. And that's made a huge difference for nonprofit. It's allowed them to really take advantage of the latest innovations in technology. So what we're going to be looking at today from a technology perspective, you'll get an idea of what that entails. It's a very dynamic environment for nonprofit finance teams today, and you may find your organization partnering, collaborating, maybe merging with other nonprofits or working with other affiliates. And as the nonprofit organization grows both in size and in mission, even locations, you really need to make sure that the technology solutions that you're using provide the flexibility and capability to manage complex financial management and organizational structures. Multiple entities are becoming more and more common in the nonprofit space, and accounting for these with that real-time visibility into location, organization, fund, grant, program, transaction, or at the consolidated level is really critical. So finance teams really need those automated processes as well, and in addition to those being able to automate processes and gain efficiencies there, they need that deep and instant visibility at all levels so they can make sure they maximize their efficiency, provide transparency, and maintain compliance requirements. Greater transparency and real-time oversight is really going to strengthen your nonprofit's performance, your integrity, and your opportunity for grading funding. So how do you do that? Well, we're going to take a look. Your organization's financial management and reporting is structured around your chart of accounts. It's a very foundational part of your accounting system, and it's the basis of your framework, and it affects everything from data entry to reporting. Nonprofits need lots of flexibility along with that deep visibility into their data. So in the nonprofit world, we typically track and view everything by multiple categories like fund, grant, program, location, project, etc. This tracking and reporting comes with the need to proactively manage across these key drivers to multiple stakeholders. So you spend a lot of time providing the data and a specific view that your various stakeholders want to see. Board members, donors, grantors, staff, they all have different needs and priorities, and this can get pretty complex pretty quickly. Traditionally, this has resulted in lots of spreadsheets and manual data entry. Basically, a lot more work, more time, and a greater risk of error. So many of us have spent way too much time in our lives in Excel, importing, cutting, pasting, sorting, etc. Well, nonprofits really have so much to track and view and report on. So Intacct created a financial management solution that incorporated a unique way for nonprofit organizations to tag and track all these unique things that we want to keep an eye on and that we want to be able to filter by when we're looking at reports, dashboards, or metrics. At Sage Intacct, part of the architecture and the way it was constructed and built uses something that we call dimensions. And dimensions allow you to tag for any attribute that you want to track, report on, or compare against. So you might set up your dimensions for location, fund, grant, program, or outcome. Now, these tags will allow for comparative and hierarchical or drill down within the organization of the key information that you want to have visibility to. Dimensions allow quick and easy access to data within context from anywhere in the application. So it makes your reporting quick and painless while allowing you to ditch all those spreadsheets. Along with that visibility and tracking that dimensions provide, the huge benefit really is in the reporting and the filtering of data that allows you to proactively manage across your key organizational drivers for greater focus and success towards your mission. Quick and easy reporting is a primary driver as you look at how you're going to target and tag your data. So let's take a little bit deeper look at that. Nonprofit finance teams are looking for instant visibility and simple, easy reporting that allows them to filter their data, to slice and dice, to quickly give them a specific view of the data in a reporting format that they need. Through a dimensional GL and the Intacct reporting tool, it gives you a guided experience to get right into the data that you need in the report formats that you want. So quick and easy tracking, visibility, and reporting are going to help you deliver on your commitment to transparency and performance. For example, you might need to maintain a key eye on a specific program that's funded by a grant in 3 different locations. Well, instant tracking and visibility in real time is going to allow you to measure and know when and if you need to make changes or adjustments or enhancements to that program in specific locations so that you can ensure that you reach success and hit the metrics that you're looking for at all locations. Now, you may be thinking that you have way too many things to track top of mind and to drill down into for reports on an hourly basis, but that's where great dashboard functionality comes into play. Dashboards are huge for nonprofit finance teams. Instant visibility to reports, tracking, approvals, and performance with drill down in real time right in front of you on your desktop, on your dashboard, or on your tablet, or your phone. At a glance, you know what the key metrics are, your financial stats, and most importantly, you have the opportunity to quickly and easily know where you need to make adjustments to ensure mission success and impact. User or role-based dashboards provide point-and-click personalization that bring the greatest benefits for ongoing management and oversight. So you can create the specific dashboard views for all of your key stakeholders that they need to see. So how do you get this real-time visibility that allows for this type of tagging, tracking, filtering of your data with easy reporting? Well, you start with a modern nonprofit accounting solution delivered in the cloud. So let's take a look at what that incorporates. The cloud has brought all types of new technology that nonprofits can leverage for greater success in their financial management efforts. At the top of that list is easy, configurable reporting available 24/7. User-based dashboards for all key stakeholders, allowing that visibility and intelligence that's understandable and actionable. Robust capability around the management of multiple entities and locations. Automation of accounting and financial tasks. Better total cost of ownership and predictable costs, so you're able to do more with less. You can get sophisticated permissions and approval capability that allows you to grant access to the right information to the right people, allowing you to easily integrate with other technology solutions that your organization is using so that everybody can be seeing the same data, the same view of the data, and does away with all that reconciliation that we used to have to do. Now, true cloud means multi-tenant, So you're going to be getting regular updates that are deployed for you. It means security and disaster recovery that's maintained for you, so you're no longer having to do all of that labor-intensive work. So let me share a little bit of information with you about what Intacct's doing in the cloud. At Sage Intacct, we know how important it is for you to be able to provide a real-time view of data and in a format that works for your key stakeholders. So that may be report nature, it may be graphical, it may be scorecards or performance cards as we call them. But we want to make sure that you have the easiest tools to use and taking advantage of the most modern technology that's going to allow your nonprofit organization to thrive and have the best chance of achieving mission success. So as we're talking today, David is going to take control, and he's going to actually go into some of these dashboards and reports and show you how we really make this technology work and how it can benefit your organization. David?
Thanks, Joan, for setting the table for today's webinar. So what we're going to talk about today is how Sage Intacct can help you not only survive, but thrive with your financial system. So it's funny, I think about survival, and I know many of you have systems today that maybe you're outgrowing or you're thinking about leaving. And when I think about today's webinar, a survival guide, what is survival? Well, so I went and looked it up, and it's the state or fact of continuing to live or exist, typically in spite of an accident, ordeal, or difficult circumstances. Difficult circumstances. So many of you today may be living in these difficult circumstances. And what does that mean? Well, it could be things such as lack of visibility. These are the types of pains that we hear when we're getting on phone calls with some of our prospects. Lack of visibility, no access to real-time data, manual processes, integration issues. So you're going about your day-to-day, but you're living in a system that is hampering you and not allowing you to fulfill your mission in a highly efficient manner. So what we want to do is basically enable our clients to be able to thrive, which is what? Grow or develop well or vigorously and prosper, okay? Through Sage Intacct, we feel that we're able to give you efficiency, ease of use, peace of mind, and essentially give you visibility to real-time data, eliminate those manual processes, solve those integration issues, and primarily through what I like to call windshield financials. So if you envision yourself sitting in a car, you're looking through your rearview mirror, that's what many systems give you today. It's a out-of-the-box solution that doesn't enable you to monitor your financials until the end of the month, the end of the period. Maybe you're using a BI tool, but you have to have your IT department refresh that cube. That's rearview mirror. What we like to call, or I like to call our financials is windshield financials. You're looking through that windshield, you're looking ahead, you have real-time data, real-time access, visibility, and you're able to manage and monitor your business on the fly, so to speak. So in order to set the table today, and what you're going to see, and what we feel is, not so much a survival guide. I mean, the survival guide is a great term in terms of communicating to you what you need to be aware of and what you need to be doing to run your businesses efficiently, what's coming down the pike in terms of regulations. These are the things that are important to you, but we don't look at Sage Intacct as giving you a survival mentality. Again, we want you to be able to thrive with your financial system. Right now, you may be surviving. And trying to abide by some of the topics we talked about today. So let's show you how you're going to thrive with Sage Intacct. So the topics we're going to cover today are reporting and visibility. You saw on Joan's slide deck, funds and grants, allocations. We'll talk about some of the things that might be able to reduce your complexity, internal controls, cash management. I feel the best way to do this is to set the table on how we actually handle our reporting. So it's important for you to understand how our chart of accounts is structured. And many of you may be coming from a system today that's more linear in nature. So by that I mean you might have an account. As an example here, we have equipment, and then you want to track many segments under that equipment account, and the different interpretations of these combinations of account segments and account segments and the primary account would essentially be 75 account code combinations. So you have this linear structure, and every time you need to add a new account or a new project, you need to basically add the account, the location, the department just to get that project code there. That's linear. What we like to do in our system, or what we do in our system from a logical perspective, is if you add that project, you're just adding that one project code. You do not have to add all of these other values here to get that into your system. So we are a logical based chart of accounts, okay? You're essentially just adding that one account. This is an historical chart of account. Okay, what we're doing is we're minimizing that setup, and you're just going to add that one account number, and it's just going to live in your chart of accounts. Okay, and you'll have the title for it, and then you'll add your dimensionality to it. So it's a table-driven chart of accounts. And another example here is you might have printing, and here's your account number. But then down here you're going to have your dimensionality, where you will add things like locations and functional areas, departments or programs, restrictions. All of this is important to a not-for-profit. And we'll also show you how you're able to leverage these dimensions to help you create complex reports like the Form 990, your 116, 117 regulations, the 958 update. All that capability is available within Sage Intacct. Again, allowing you not only to survive but thrive and spend less time in this area, setting up, maintaining, trying to create reports, basically let the system do the work for you so that you can monitor and look forward. All right, so again, just a review, dimensions allow you to report, basically customize your reports, capture key metrics. They help you streamline, give you a detailed level of analysis, and basically you can also use them in entry rules, workflow, and security. So as you run through our webinar today, you will see that the general ledger account's basically the center of our universe, and then you can add dimensionality to the transaction, things like departments and restrictions. We can track relationships such as vendors and customers, projects, and we can even create our own dimensions. Okay, and we also have a hierarchical approach to our dimensionality so that you can embed maybe a parent-child relationship. So you're tracking at a higher level, a particular dimension, and then maybe you can have some parent-child relationships. And I have a great example of how we're able to leverage this type of functionality. Okay, so now we're going to hop back into the product, or actually go to the product. So the flow today, as I mentioned, we will cover those topics I mentioned, but the flow is going to be more or less to give you a feel for your UI, your UX, which is user interface, user experience, security, help, and then get into dashboards. Because again, this survival guide that we're talking about, it's how you're able to leverage your financial system to really embrace what you're trying to do from a mission perspective. So in order for us to show you that, I want to first call out how easy it is to use a system so you can get around. You want to have peace of mind that your employees are in a system, they're self-sufficient, they're able to move around, they're able to do their job, they're able to get you information. You also want to have peace of mind that you have a secure system so that certain employees might not be able to get into certain areas. You want to have that internal control, that segregation of duties, right? So that's where we're talking about ease of use. Okay, so just if you look across the top, we have a standard menu structure. We're able to provide our users a favorites menu. So over here we have access to the full menu. We can just kind of click these stars here and make them favorites. We have a big landing page here where they will be able to land either on a dashboard or perhaps they want to land in a certain functional area. We can do that so that when they log in the system, they'll perhaps just land in their general ledger area. Okay. On the dashboard, we do have the capability of multiple groupings. So you might have dashboards that we are going to group into things like analysis views, or maybe we want to have compliance dashboards. We have role-based dashboard grouping. So you may want to create a dashboard for a board member or your CFO, maybe a department head, the director of finance. All of these are going to be grouped under a role-based dashboard. So when you're actually in one of them, so as an example, maybe we are in an outcome, let's say actually maybe analysis views, say we're looking at the budget position for our organization, but we're able to toggle back and forth through the different dashboards that we have grouped under analysis views. Okay, so again, ease of use, giving you real-time access to data, but doing it in an efficient, fast way, so you don't have to really spend a lot of time searching and looking for reports. Okay, so let's talk about dashboarding and reporting because this is where the data really comes to fruition. Okay, so if we're on let's go to my favorites here. We'll leverage that UI UX functionality here. And we're going to go to a Director of Finance dashboard as an example. Okay, so in this particular situation, Carla Grace, she's our power user, and uh, we have basically set up the system here so that when Carla Grace enters into Sage Intacct, she's going to land on a dashboard. Okay, and we told the system which dashboard she will land on. As you can see here, we have a lot of dashboards set up in the system. The system does come with a complete set of dashboards, and you can create your own and then assign them. Or we could have just said, hey, you know what, we don't want her to land on a dashboard. We might want to have Carla, when she enters the system, land on a general ledger page or an accounts payable page. And that's how we do that there. So a little bit about how we would enter the system in terms of a user. So over here on the Director of Finance dashboard, this is where the data really comes to life. Okay, this is what's giving you that windshield view of your financials. So on here we have components, and we can minimize this menu here to give us more real estate here. So this is where the financial system is really coming to life. It's providing us that real-time visibility into our day-to-day activity. In here we have components, and these components on these dashboards can be things like reports. They can be graphs. Okay, we have other types of components such as a collaboration feed. This is what enables you to communicate to other users in the system so that you can pass information back and forth. You can attach, you can put links on here. You can take snapshots of data that you're looking at so that they know what you're referring to. And then when you're in the system, if this collaboration feed happens to be maybe on an invoice or a purchase order, when you send that note, it will actually attach a link to the note so that you can click back into that link and get back to the document that they were talking about. Okay, so let's talk about what is showing on this dashboard. This particular report here is showing you a view of your programs in columnar format with your expenditure categories down the side. Okay, so what this is enabling you to do is have real-time access to your, in this case, maybe your actual versus your operating budget. Okay, now as you're looking through here, you're seeing that you have numbers, but they're not, you can't drill down into them yet because we do have drill down functionality within our system. But you're looking at it at a high level, how you're doing against your operating budget by program. Okay, and with the dimensionality and how we set the system up, we're able to have dynamic matrix type views of our financials. So again, you have that real-time visibility, that windshield view of how you're doing in how you're operating your organization. So as an example here, maybe you're analyzing your budget and maybe under counseling, something catches your eye. Okay. Now these are programs in the system, as I mentioned. Let me come over here and show you that the dimensionality is set up under what we call dimensions. So here we have our programs. Now in our programs, this is where I set up those codes. Okay. Here's that parent-child relationship we saw on the slide. So I have my program set up: coaching, counseling, retreat, crisis. And then maybe under crisis, I want to take it down to another level, maybe a child relationship, where under crisis, I want to do event response and connections as an example. So when you're coding, you can code at the lowest common denominator, and then that'll roll it up into crisis, or you could just code to crisis. Okay. And we do have dimension relationships so that when you're perhaps setting up certain transactions and you pick maybe an example, you pick a fund, maybe certain dimensions can only be used with that fund. So we would set up in a relationship where maybe you would only see crisis for a particular fund as an example. Okay. Another great way of illustrating the parent-child relationship that you'll see here is under restrictions. So here we have that concept of the 958, right, where it's restricted and without restriction, but underneath it we're tracking the 116, the old 116, 117 methods of regulatory compliance for permanently, temporarily, and unrestricted. So if you do code at a temporary level, it'll automatically roll it up to the with donor restriction level. So there's no need to do dual entry. We can do dual reporting on single entry. Okay, and you'll see an example of that on my compliance dashboard in a little bit. So let's go back over to our dashboards, click on favorites, and we'll go back to our Director of Finance dashboard. Okay, so this is, again, we mentioned groupings. This is our role-based dashboards. It will show you from a permission perspective what you're able to see in the system. This particular person, as I mentioned, Carla, she is a business user, full business user, has full access based on permissions. And right now, she's just sitting on top of the Director of Finance dashboard. Now, what she sees here is that while we're a little over budget here, 26,000 to 22. We want to maybe take a look at that. This is where we have that drillability concept. Okay, it's going to give you real-time visibility. Let's drill down on office supplies, kind of see what's going on here. Now, notice that I wasn't able to drill down into this number because it's a black number. Blue numbers in Sage Intacct enable you to drill down. The reason why we're not able to drill down on this number is it's basically an aggregation of multiple accounts. The way we do reporting in Sage Intacct is on an account group concept. All these are account groups. The beautiful thing about account groups is that you decide what's in those account groups. So as an example, maybe you have grantors that like to see data in a certain way. It doesn't mimic your chart of accounts. They don't care what your chart of accounts looks like. So you would have to set up your left side here to mimic what they want to see. And then you tell the line items, you configure the line items to be whatever accounts you want them to be. Okay, so if your grantor had a tuition line item, right, maybe that translates into 15 different accounts in your system, or as an example, maybe personnel expenses or professional fees. Let's look at program expenses. See, there's only one account in the program expenses, which is fine, but now we're at the lowest common denominator, and it gives us the drill down capability because the numbers are blue. If we were over in maybe personal expenses is made up of a whole bunch of different accounts, right? Salaries, life insurance premium, health insurance premiums. You can see all the accounts they're made up of and all the drill down capability now that we're in the lowest common denominator. So that's a concept I want to make sure you understand within Sage Intacct, that we have the ability. I showed you the dimensions, right? But we're also tracking our accounts in what we call account groups. Okay. So we'll go back to drilling down into that office supply account, and now we're going to drill down into this $26,000 to see what's up. And as we get back to the general ledger report, we can see here that we have multiple line items available to us. And as we keep drilling down or scrolling down, here's a number that might pop out at us, $6,300. Okay, so we'll click on that, pops up another window, and it shows us that we have a journal entry that made up that amount. And that journal entry, again, you can see where it was debited, where it was credited, all right? And if we want to drill down, get back maybe to the batch summary, shows us that we have two invoices that were created with this particular transaction. So let's take a look at this 6,000, and we can go ahead and just view that. And now we get back to the bill. Okay, we can see if it's overdue. Obviously it is. Someone doesn't want to pay this bill, and we're probably going to find out why. $6,000. Again, we come down here, we can see that we debited office supplies, but now notice that this is the dimensionality that we're leveraging in the system. This is what gives us the ability to slice and dice our information, track 1099 reporting if we want to from an AP perspective. But again, we're setting up our programs, we're setting up our funds and our entities that we'll talk about here in a little bit. We're tracking our restrictions for that 958, 116, 117 reporting capability, all on the line items so that you can, again, slice, dice, roll up, break down your data, your reports, and so forth. But now we're still analyzing this particular transaction, so let's click on attachments, and we can see if there's maybe a picture of this thing, and we can click on this one, and we can see that we have an invoice here that we were able to scan, drag, and drop into the transaction. All right, we see it was for a gold pen, and now if we want to see what that pen looks like, we can click on this one, and how's a picture of the pen? Okay. Maybe we want to see some workflow that was related to this. Again, throughout this demo, we're going to be talking about reporting. We're going to be talking about your capabilities to have real-time visibility, but also give you a flavor of how transactions are being processed through the system, the workflow around it, the automation that's built in, um, to help you become more efficient, to help your employees to become more efficient. So if we drill down into the document ID number here, this will give us some visibility into how this invoice came to be, how this bill came to be. And now it shows us some vendor invoice history here. So we click on this history tab, and you can see that we have a complete trail of where this bill came from. So it started out as a requisition, and we are able to set up any type of workflow we want in the system through what we call transaction definitions. A transaction definition is essentially what it says. It's a definition of how we want to transact in the system, and then what type of workflow we want to have within those transaction definitions. So kind of like how a bill becomes a law, requisition becomes a purchase order becomes a commitment release became an invoice. Now, you don't have to necessarily follow this flow, but in this particular situation, this is how we want to set the system up so that we're tracking. As an example, you want to be able to track maybe your commitments. So a lot of organizations want to be able to have visibility into not only what their actuals are, but what's sitting out there open on POs, because that's the true picture, right? That's the magic formula. Budget minus commitment minus actual equals available. You can even throw encumbrance in there if that's what your organization does. It's unlimited, and you basically have a blank canvas on how you want to set that up. And you can drill down into these particular transactions that occurred. So perhaps I want to look at the requisition and see what happened at the requisition level, and I can scroll down, look at history, and I can see, how it started out. Looks like it started as a $12,000 transaction. That's interesting. So let's see what happened once it became a purchase order. And I can see that at the purchase order level, now it became $6,000. So somewhere along the line, somebody changed that. Okay, and then on the history tab, again, we have the history of the purchase order as well. Okay. And finally, we have our invoice. Okay. All with the same tabs. So that's how you would get back and get around to how a transaction really came to be. And if I had a question while I was on one of these transactions, there's that collaboration feed. Okay. Here's some conversation going back and forth from Carla to Dave Abel. Please tell me why you spent $6,000 on a pen. Why are you spending $6,000 on a pen? So we can send this communication back and forth. The beautiful thing about the collaborate function is that it will give you notification within the system, but it also sends an email to your inbox if you happen to not be in the system when that message was sent. And then from the message, you can actually actually click a link and get back into the system. Okay, so we're back at the role-based dashboard for Director of Finance. And that's the kind of capability it gives you, right? So again, we're looking at a matrix view with programs and columns. We can set these columns up any way we want. We can even manipulate them to show us different information. So here we have contributions, and you can see here we have multiple GL accounts showing for our contributions. But maybe we want to look at this a little differently. So maybe on the fly, we want to kind of cut this down a little bit and maybe see, maybe pivot to what makes up these contributions, maybe what kind of donors were giving us these contributions. So right from the dashboard, again, permissionable, we can click on our little pencil here and just go to our row for contributions. And maybe we want to say, you know what, while we're at it, let's expand this by the customer or funder dimension here and take a look at see what that does for us. So now let's just look at a preview here. And you can see here now we're looking at our contributions by some of our funders. Okay, so we can see here that we have our funders are set up as Accenture, Disney, Google, and you can see what they have contributed to our organization for each one of these programs. Okay, and we just did that on a quick pivot. If we want to save that, we can save that as a separate report. We can duplicate and save so we preserve our original report, or we could just do that on the fly and do a preview and then ultimately cancel it. All right, so multiple capability here. The columns are unlimited, and you can add as many columns to the left or right. Perhaps maybe we want to add a variance column here, so we would just simply add a column to the right, and then just start building out what we want that column to look like by saying, okay, you know what, we have all these options here. Maybe we want to do a period variance or a period difference, okay? And then we can choose all this information here to be able to build out that column. Again, unlimited. We can have multiple budgets showing here, add the budgets together. Maybe we have a mid-year recast budget, so we want to have an original operating budget, maybe a mid-year recast budget, then an actual, okay? All that capability exists right on the fly from the report writer. Another nice thing I want to show you that while we're on that dashboard, let's go back there real quick. Actually, I'm a Penny Smith. Let's go back here. So while we were on that dashboard, I do want to point out that we have the capability within our columns to have what we call multiple or user-defined books. So on this actual column here, we're actually telling the system which reporting book we want to use. So if I come in to edit books here, you can see we have a number of other books available to us. So I went in and I created some sample books here, and these available books might be GAAP or provisional, commitments, encumbrance, forecast. We're tracking when we post transactions, we're telling it which book to carry it in, so that if we had a forecast book as an example, we can post transactions in that forecast book and then render it on a report to add it to actual to kind of see where we're going to end up from a budget perspective. Or we want to see that those commitments we're tracking, we can add that to a report so that we're looking at that magic formula. We might have a purchasing transaction report where we're looking at, hey, what was our budget, what's our actual, what's our commitments, and then where are we at in terms of budget. Okay, so we can add those books to a report, or we can combine them together simply by adding a book and then saying, hey, we want to just include the actual with that book, so it just adds it together automatically. So we wouldn't show forecast and actual separately. We might combine them to take a look at our budget variance. Okay. Let's talk about some other dashboards here. So instead of the director of finance, let's look at our sample metrics. Okay, so again, giving us real-time visibility. We're able to track statistical data in the system. The system is comprised of a GL account, as you would expect. We saw some screenshots and some screen captures of that. Here's a listing of a normal chart of accounts, right? We have our assets, type of 5 here, filter it down, get to our expenses really quick. But we also have what we call statistical accounts. And statistical accounts enable us to track non-financial data. So we might want to track things like any one of these types of metrics. Headcount, children served, members, awards, anything you can think of that's non-financial, you want to track from a statistical perspective. And then what we do is we render those onto dashboards. Okay, so here's a sample metric dashboard where we have some what we call these little boxes performance cards. Okay, so this will kind of illustrate the true value and the true purpose and power of a statistical measurement. And that we're able to not only render financial data here, like in this case, 16.8 million is our total operating, here's our expenses, but we're able to track the statistics. So how many patients are we serving? How many housing units do we have? Let's take those statistics and perform computations so that we might want to look at, hey, what's our revenue per patient per program? Is it up? We have these little performance indicators here. Is it showing up? We can have an arrow or a happy face or a red flag to basically show us where we're trending. Because you can see here down in the lower right-hand corner, it's actually showing us where we were versus the prior year, right? So we're $16.8 million. We're showing a little green arrow that's up because our prior year was, we're plus 7.4 million from last year. So you define what you want your comparisons to be. Do you want it to compare it to last year, last month, last quarter? You have the control to do that. Okay, then we have our little, again, another component here that's showing our program expenses per patient cost. So again, we have that concept of being able to show our programs in columns, right? And then our account grouping here on the left. But notice we're also incorporating those statistics, right? So here's that $4,516 that's represented right here, right? We're showing little spark lines on, hey, are we going up? Are we trending up? Are we trending down? Our general administrative expenses is going down. That's good, but our professional fees are kind of trending up. So it kind of gives us a quick some quick visibility into what's happening on those expense lines. But we're also taking those statistics and we're dividing them into our individual programs. So maybe we have our patient served broken down. Again, when we tag these transactions, if you recall, on a transaction line, we're able to pick which program we want to put on that transaction. Same concept with statistical entries. You might want to do an increase or a decrease to um, a patient metric value, but you're coding it with which maybe program that patient's being served by, okay? Those statistical entries are entered like regular journal entries, or you can maybe even import them as a CSV file. We also have the capability to interface with your third-party systems. If you're using an advanced CRM system, we can create tight integrations to bring that data in so you can do create these types of performance metrics. Okay, so we're just taking this patient serve and dividing it into this 2.8 million to get our cost per patient. All right, so again, being able to track these statistical entries, use them not only to display how many we have, but also let's take them and divide them into our financial data to give us other meaningful metrics. We can stick them into different charts. Maybe we're tracking our meals served per site, right? A site as a dimension, and we have this as a little donut. So hey, let's break this up a little bit and kind of see that we have $151,500, okay, in total meals served. All right. And tracking volunteers per program, different graphs, different capabilities here. Always drill downable. You can hover over and see what the values represent. Okay, so again, getting back to those concepts we talked about earlier, reporting visibility. How are you able to manage your business using this functionality? Okay. Let's go back again to another dashboard where we're going to show you maybe compliance and tax capabilities here. So maybe you might want to grant your auditor visibility into your system. Okay, here's our collaborate. Again, our collaborate feed, so the auditor can communicate back and forth to you while they're looking in the system. You would give them permissions on what they're capable of doing. Can they read? Can they write? Can they post a transaction? Probably not. But we will give them certain reports that they may want to look at. Okay, so in this case, here's that concept of being able to track our 958 update alongside our FAS 117 statement of activities. Okay, so two side-by-side statement of activities, same numbers here, 32,491, 32,491. However, on this one, we're tracking it by with and without donor restriction. Over here, we're tracking it with unrestricted, temporarily restricted, and permanently restricted. Again, we only put this transaction in once. We coded it to one of these guys here, and it rolled it up to one of these guys over here. Okay, same concept holds true for our statement of financial position. Okay, I want to drag that up. I didn't like where that was. Let me drag that statement of financial position up. And again, we're looking at this statement of financial position in terms of our net assets section. We have our with donor, without donor restrictions, and over here our net assets are broken down into perm, temp, and unrestricted. Okay, again, same numbers, 39 million, 39 million. All right. Another nice thing about these dashboards and about the capabilities of Sage Intacct is our ability to help you navigate the waters of creating complex reports. One example of that might be your Form 990. Okay. So on the 990, your Part 9 Statement of Functional Expenses, this is a standard report in our system. Okay. All that you're asked to do during configuration is to basically map your GL accounts to the account groups that we have set up. And the way we do this, the best practice is that every time you set up a GL account, okay, let me give you a visual representation of that. So every time you set up a GL account, let's go to our expense section here, get quickly down to maybe salaries. Let's view the salary account, and you'll see that we have something called a category, okay, right there. This salary and wage expense category, we have predefined categories in the system that you would assign to your GL accounts. So that every time you set up a GL account, you're going to assign that GL account a category. We are leveraging those categories to create our reports. So what that means to you is that, let's go over here. You are then able to map your GL accounts to what we have set up here to be our account groupings. And then they'll just automatically plop in here. And then over here on this side for program services, we have these columns set up to show program service, management in general, and fundraising. If you saw, maybe I didn't show it, but this program service, management in general, and fundraising, these three columns here, are represented on the dimensions, in this case in their programs, you can see here these are kind of how we categorize them, right? So you'll come in here and you'll set up what you want your dimensions to be, and then they'll map automatically to that report based upon account groupings. Okay. That UFR report keeps coming up that I want to show you in a little bit. Okay, so the 990 again is a system report, and we'll help you maintain that. But just know that you're able to then use this as a worksheet of sorts to be able to populate your actual 990. All right, so hopefully that would be something that would be meaningful and resonates with you. Okay, so again, another type of report that'll enable you to stay compliant and to have real-time access to data again, and navigating through those waters and essentially surviving, right? But doing it through a system that'll help you thrive. All right. Well, since that report kept coming up, let's look at it, right? So in other words, I want you to understand that if this is a uniform financial report that I know some of our clients are interested in, but we like to think of a dashboard as a blank canvas, okay? And then on that blank canvas, you can start populating the different components. So maybe you want your system to start tracking information that would enable you to create these complex reports like a 990, like a UFR. So you can see here we just create some quick and dirty components here that will show you that we're able to, again, through statistics, we're able to track items that might help us populate the UFR staff section or the expense section, and basically create these in a format so that once the account groupings are set up, once your dimensions are all configured, all you're doing is just posting transactions, and the work is being done for you and accumulated behind the scenes again because it's real time, right? So every time you post a transaction, it just shows up here, and then when it comes time to create these reports, you basically just launch the dashboard. Maybe you want to set some filters here because on these dashboards you can tell it that you want to look at a certain program, maybe coaching or something like that. Apply at different date filters. All that capability exists right here on the dashboard. And keep in mind that these dashboards are just showing reports. If I was to come over to my report section and just look at all my reports, somewhere down here, we should see there we go. So here's those actual UFR reports. Okay, so we're just basically taking those reports and just putting them on a dashboard. Okay. Let's see. Well, maybe here's another important dashboard or reporting capability that, again, will help you to survive and thrive. A grant manager. Okay, so our system enables you to have, as you might expect, the capability to track grants and projects. Okay, so when you're doing that, when you're setting up your grants and projects, before I do that, let me again show you the dimension where we do that. Okay, we have the capability to track our projects and grants again through a dimension. All right, so maybe we're tracking our projects or tracking our grants. We do have the capability to set this up so that if you do set up a grant, you could set it up so that we have, again, parent-child relationships. If this Centon project was actually a grant, then maybe we have projects under it. Or maybe we have projects and we can create the grants under those, and we can roll them up and break them down based upon our coding. Okay. So through this capability, then when you're on a report, and if we go back to that dashboard report, since we can cross fiscal years, that's important with grants, right? Because the grants don't typically coincide with our particular fiscal year. You're now able to look at your grants according to the revenue, all right? I'm sorry, across fiscal years or the revenue components. So up here, we're just basically looking at, we have a grant position dashboard or report, I should say. And on that dashboard for our grant manager, we're looking at our different grants, okay? And as they're set up, what was the original award amount? What kind of revenue was booked? Do we have a remaining draw? Again, this is just a computation. All right, what are our expenditures inception to date, right? That's an important concept because we want to look at this from the time the grant came to be until the date we are reporting against. Then what's our remaining spend? And again, we're looking at it across a time matrix here, okay? Or maybe we have a particular grant that we just want to look at in terms of its grant reporting period. We're a calendar year, but maybe the grant is a is a July through June. All right, so we're able to show the July through June for the period ending 2015 and the period ending 2014, and what's the total grant period look across this particular grant, crossing fiscal years. Right. Another important concept or another important capability is the CFA report, right? So we're able to add these fields to the project and track the CFDA number, other IDs. All right. So again, creating that concept where we're giving you a workbook of sorts or a worksheet to be able to track the detail, and then just take this and translate it over to your statement of expenditures and financial awards report. Okay, by being able to track this type of information. All right. So all very feature-rich capabilities here. The other concept is we're a multi-entity system, a very powerful multi-entity system, I should say. So if you're an organization that maybe has multiple entities, multiple companies, you basically just toggle back and forth between your entities from within one login. No need to log off, log on. They're all here available to you to be able to, if you in a true cloud solution fashion, if I was to click on, for instance, Foundation, it just pops open another web page here, another tab, and then it will just basically be transacting in the Foundation entity. Most of the time, you're going to transact at a top level because you have the capability of picking which particular entity you want to be dealing with. So maybe you're entering a bill, and you can see here that we have the capability to pick which entity that we want to transact in. And if we're at the top level, what happens is if you're transacting between entities, okay, let me show you over here. If you look at the entities in general, maybe we want to look at the HQ entity. You set the system up so that you have inter-entity setup capabilities, right? So as you're crossing entities within the system, you're tracking the due to do froms automatically between the entities when you transact, okay? You can also leverage the entities to do funding, true fund accounting, right? The old way of doing fund accounting, not restriction fund accounting, but maybe due to do from. So if you need a full balance sheet per fund, you could set these funds up as entities and then transact between those funds so that we're tracking the due to do froms between the funds. And then when it's all said and done, again, back to reporting, right? Let's get back to dashboards. You may want to have, let's see here. You may want to have an umbrella view, so to speak, across your different entities, right? So up here we're tracking, again, in this case, we're just doing it strictly as entities. So we have HQ, Foundation, Trust Association, companies, so to speak. But then we're looking at this on a consolidated basis. So we're able to, within the top level, show each column as one of those entities, okay? You could set up and track your eliminations across these different companies so that it gives you a true picture of what your consolidation looks like, okay? So here's a statement of revenue expenditures by entity, and here's a balance sheet comparison by entity, okay? So again, that capability that capability exists in the system as well. Okay, so let me just make sure I have everything I want to show you. We have a few minutes left here, so let me show you that we have, I love this dashboard. This is called our fund efficiency view. So again, the true power of performance cards and graphs, and if you had, like I said earlier, if you had a CRM system where you're tracking all of your funding, you would then interface that back to Sage Intacct so you can create all these great performance cards and tracking your donors, how many gifts have donors, the number of giving donors, the number of major donors, all these things are being tracked, their tendencies, what their average gifts are, contributions by campaign, by programs. All that capability exists in just a nice little flash report here to be able to give to your CFO or your CEO might want to look at this type of activity. Okay, so that wraps it up. I hope this quick tour, the Survival Guide webinar, gave you some visibility in the capabilities of Sage Intacct to handle your needs. And at this point, I'm going to flip back to Joan.
I wanted to just share a glimpse for you of some of the types of nonprofit organizations that support, that use Intacct to support their financial management applications. And I think it's important to note that you see here some of the logos, and they cross all the different categories within nonprofit organizations. So you see here everything from foundations to international organizations to human services to nonprofit health care, all types of organizations that are using Intacct to grow their success. This gives you just a quick high-level view of some of the awards and gives you a little more insight into how Intacct is built and the types of organizations that support and endorse Intacct and that are basically saying this is the premier nonprofit financial management tool that's available today. And that includes the AICPA as well as IFAC and American Express. So as you start to look for a technology solution, it's really important to check references. It's important to check the types of awards and endorsement that these organizations have, and also check their customer success rate, because that's what's really important, and that's what's going to matter to you when you're using the technology. So that's one of the things. We're the highest ranked in customer satisfaction, and that's very important to all of us that work at Sage Intacct, and we want to make sure that we maintain that. So we want to make sure that you're going to be a happy customer on Sage Intacct. So I've tried to keep up with your questions as they came through on the chat today and answering and responding to those. If there were some that I was not able to get to or that didn't give you exactly the extent of information that you're looking for, I would love for you to follow up with us afterwards. There is a phone number here as well. I have some additional contact information, so take a look at that when you get this deck and let us know how we can help you. When you get the deck in your email and the link to the recording, I want you to take a look at these resources because there's lots of information that will be really beneficial to you. There's, if you go to the website, and the link is here on this slide, you can actually get a free 30-day trial, so you can get in and play around with the technology and reporting tools and dashboards and get a better feel for the solution. There's also links to other webinar topics that you might be interested in, contact information, all types of resources. There's a 4-minute overview here that would probably be very useful to you. So when you get the deck, take a look at it. And again, feel free to reach out to us. This contact information if there's anything that we can do to help. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate and value your time and your questions and your interaction with us. And we would love to be able to help. If there's anything we could do, please reach out to us. Thanks so much, everyone.